Hi, I'm Ron.
And I'm Don.
And this is the Ron and Don Show. Thank you for joining us today. We're going to talk about wall upgrades, but first I want to acknowledge our host today, which is Florida Stainless Fabricators. We're in Orlando, Florida, where they've been gracious enough to let us film this episode in their production facility.
I have had a number of times in my past where rodents have run across the dining room. We've had crawly items get out into the dining room, and oftentimes it's a result of a problem in the kitchen or the bar or a side station with a rotten wall that has become a wet, rotting, stinking harborage for some pests. That's what we want to solve today.
I don't think there's a facility manager out there that's viewing this that has ever had to not deal with mop sinks, dish rings, server side stations, or any of the above or all of the above in the deterioration of the walls that surround those areas.
But it doesn't always happen in the kitchen. If you have landscaping that has had mulch piled up against the building and you get water that is not draining properly and it flows into the building, you'll get a rotten wall in the dining room or the restrooms or the bar or other places. So most of what we're going to talk about is for food service areas, but you are certainly able to expand it.
You know, and as Don started out with, one of the biggest concerns are the concerns over pests that love to harbor in these deteriorated areas.
And then we're going to get into the opportunity of odor and just downstream damage that happens to this. Where you have a problem with a wall, if it's right here, the water probably has migrated quite a ways away. And that hole right here that you cut, thinking that's going to solve the problem, if it was a 3-foot section, you're probably going to end up with 9 feet of wall.
Yeah.
And it's gone up higher too. If it's behind a dish ring where the pre-scrap is, you're 6 feet high at least for the damage.
And the longer you wait, the further it runs.
Exactly.
So in addition to the odor, you've also got mold and fungus concerns, which are real concerns when you've got moisture inside the wall and propagating up and over across the wall. So be aware of those.
Exactly. Now, my contractors, I always demanded that all the time they carried boric powder on their trucks. So if they got into a restaurant and there was a wall that's in bad shape, they could quickly just drill a hole and blow some boric powder in there until we could get back and tear the wall out. We're going to use that boric powder to treat the wall after we have removed all the affected materials and replaced it to prevent the pest infestations and to help dry it out. But it can help in reducing the immediate short-term problem until you can do the proper thing in a week, no more than.
I'm going to highlight something Don just said a minute ago too. If you think your wall is deteriorated in only a 24-inch, for example, area, expect that it's probably going to be 3 times that amount by the time you open the wall up and have to deal with all of what's going on in there. So have the materials and be prepared to do in as much as 3 times the area that you may initially expect. And of course, the very first material you want to have on site is the cement board that is the backing for the lower portions of the walls where those repairs are going on.
Also be aware that a lot of these walls, particularly the dish room walls, are common with the dining room. And you may have water that's penetrated through into the dining room. You may have damaged carpet, have mold and fungus growing there. You can be growing mushrooms inside your booths up against that wall. You may have to reconstruct some of those booth bases. You may have, I have in a number of cases, had to replace a bunch of purses and ladies' shoes that got saturated from sitting there dining. And some of those purses are kind of expensive.
So you can imagine why you need the proper cementatious board. It's also important, to Don's point, with the propagation of water, that we have a good membrane that's able to go down there. There are several various versions of waterproofing that can be done to the lower wall at base, and membrane is one that I like to use, especially in environments where you've got the potential for movement in the wall itself. And if you'll think about the way operations from time to time will use a mop sink area, when they throw that big bucket full of dirty mop water in there, it tends to bang up against the wall, so you do have wall movement. That's a great area when you're doing waterproofing that you want to use a membrane for. But also think too that you need pressure treated studs or steel studs depending on your application, and you need base tile, you need the setting materials, All of that stuff, again, needs to be in portions that are probably far more than you expect to use.
Once you get in there and you start demoing the area, you should demo out 2 feet away from the wall of your floor tile and go up substantially higher than where your damage is, because the mold and other items could be growing inside the cement board that's there, the sheetrock, whatever is there, and it will have its roots and its tentacles and rhizomes, I can never say that properly, going beyond, and you could be coming back into the same situation later on. Once that area is demoed, you're going to come back in with your plates, your studs, and rebuild the wall. You may put in concrete block to raise the plate up higher, and then put a membrane in that's solid from 2 feet out from the wall all the way up the wall to your highest point. And like I said, behind is a spray area of a dish machine or the discharge end of a dish machine. I always went at least 6 feet, at least 6, because of all the splatter of water. And get that cement board sealed properly all the way past 2 feet into the room.
Now you're ready for the finished material. It can either be FRP or stainless steel, or maybe in some cases tile to match what was existing. But in all cases, do please consider using a flashing at the bottom of the material where it may be coming into contact with the top of the base tile.
Now, if you're working in an area where you have corners or end walls, we've got several products here that Florida Stainless has shown us. That's really designed to go and protect the corners of base tiles where you're going to run a lot of carts around and clip it and knock the base tiles off. You've got a corner guard that just sits on top of the wall. Not preferable, but if you aren't tearing the wall apart, that one right there, you're going to build the wall with the sheetrock or the wonder board right here, and that after this has been installed on your studs, and then you're going to have your finished material over the top from here as well. A lot more durable than this, but this is better than nothing. If you have an end cap wall, same idea. You put this on first, and then your Durarock or Wonder Board, whatever finishes are, go on afterwards, depending on the size of the wall. Getting these solved may reduce the chances of you having to come back in and redo all this work.
And that's probably where the deterioration in the wall came from in the first place, was the fact that the wall was banged or damaged somehow, and that it opened up, it allowed that water to come in, and that's where it all starts. So important, restated one more time, make sure when the demo part of that is going on, you demo the entire amount necessary to get back to good material, if you will, so that you leave nothing wet, nothing damaged inside that wall when you close it back up.
One last important point for me is when working around 3-compartment sinks and dish areas, your soap dispenser folks love to hang their dispensers wherever they want them to save them on runs of their little tubing for liquids. Don't let them hang their soap dispensers behind the pre-scrap. Make them move it substantially away so the water sprayed and bounced off the pre-scrap does not go and run down behind that soap dispenser. Same thing on the rinse agent. Get it away from the end of the dish machine so the steam doesn't get back behind there. Rust those screws, penetrate the wall, and turn you back into the situation you were in. Let's talk about wall covering real quickly. FRP is wonderful for throughout the kitchen, but wherever you have high impact damageable walls, carts with glasses and plates on them, wheel carts or whatever, stainless steel will take that and protect the wall because it's a lot tougher. FRP and tile are easily damaged by impact, so save those for areas that are not going to see that kind of action, and you can save some money there, but don't save money by not using stainless steel where you have impact or heavy impact from water and or devices.
Now, after you've got the FRP or stainless or whatever the wall finishes are, let's also make sure we pay particular attention to whatever penetrations are in those finished wall surfaces. If you've got plumbing pipes coming out or chases or whatever the case may be, let's make sure those things get properly sealed up so that there's no areas for water to get back in that wall and do damage. It may be escutcheons, but ultimately in all cases, let's make sure we get a good solid seal around those penetrations.
And not a loose escutcheon, one that is sealed to the wall. Now, little bonus for you. If you're going to go back in with stainless steel, absolutely, there's no question. If you don't have stainless steel on that wall, you can capitalize it in most cases because it is an addition of something that was not normally there before. If you're restructuring a wall substantially, you can honestly say that you are extending the life of that building. If it is, let's say, a couple thousand, $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 wall replacement, and in many cases you can capitalize that as well. It's not all expense. If you're just going to do a patch in the wall, it's R&M.
As a final footnote, if you're going to go through this entire process and there's the possibility of capitalizing and you're adding the stainless steel components, consider the operations perspective. Would they appreciate some shelving in some of these areas? It's a great time when all these walls are open to go ahead and put the blocking in so that once the walls are covered back up, you can then solidly mount some wall shelves or whatever else may be needed there.
You're ready to rock.
I'm Ron.
And I'm Don.
This is the Ron and Don Show, coming to you from Florida Stainless Fabricators in Orlando, Florida. We'd like to thank them for being our host today. Thank you. Please subscribe.